Hey guys, and welcome to Audio Video Production 1. Our lesson today is titled The Television Production Process. The television production process, even though it says television, this could be applied to film. This could be applied to really any type of production that you happen to be doing. So let's hop right in. So first thing we need to know about television production, we got a definition here, and that definition is the process message. The process message is really important. It's defined as the message that is actually received by the viewer in the process of watching a program. So let's take, for example, that you're watching a movie about a husband and a wife. Let me give you a good example. Let's try the movie Up. If you've seen the movie Up, at the very beginning, it goes through the life of Mr. Fredrickson and his wife, and then you figure out that she's passed away. So basically, as you're watching that, what was the message that you received? How did you actually feel? Did you feel sad? Okay, if you felt sad, then that's the process message. That's the message you actually received by the viewer in the process of watching the program. So if you're watching a movie and they wanted it to be sad and you started laughing, you're like, this is super funny, then the process message is you thought it was funny, but that's not really what they wanted you to feel. So process message is the message actually received by the viewer in the process of watching the program. Now, it's going to be really important to understand the effect to cause model. Now, everything we do in television, film, etc., you want people to watch your program. You want them to tune in. You want them to pay attention to what's going on. And the reason for that is you want to make money. Okay? The more people that pay to see your movie, the more money you're going to make. The more people that come to the theater and buy it on demand, etc. Television shows, the more people that watch your TV show, the more advertising dollars that you'll be able to charge to watch that TV show. So let's kind of figure out here what the effect to cause model really is. The first thing, whenever you're starting to do, and we're going to use TV show for an example here, you come up with an idea for a TV show. And you're like, I have this show, and it's about some 20-somethings in New York City, and there's some girls, the three girls that live on one side of the hallway, and directly on the other side of the hallway, three guys are living there, and, I want it to be a really cool show about friends. And I think that, people will really be interested in learning about these friends. I want it sometimes to be funny because I do want it to be a situational comedy, what we call a sitcom. So most of the time I want to get a lot of laughs. I want it to be really funny. There might be times where I want it to be sad. There might be times where I want it to be heartwarming. And you can, if you've ever watched the show Friends, you can think about those different episodes. But for the most part, it was a situational comedy, a sitcom. So you come up with an idea for the show and you go and you put your first show together. As the writer, as the producers, as the creators of the show, you are going to put into play what is called the defined process message. Now, the defined process message is the desired effect that you want to have on your audience. So in other words, when Phoebe and Ross are talking and Phoebe tells a joke, you want the audience to laugh. Okay? That is your defined process message. This is the desired effect that you want to have on your particular audience. So, I've actually been at some tapings of the TV show Friends. It's a lot of fun to go watch a taping of a show. Obviously, that one's not being produced anymore, but you can watch lots of reruns on television or Netflix, etc. So, you go to the taping of the show, and you're sitting there in the audience, and here's this scene between Ross and Phoebe. Phoebe tells the joke. The reason the audience is sitting there, the live studio audience, is they want to know if you laugh. The writers are actually there. They're right down there. You've got all the camera people, you got the actors, you got the producers, the creators of the show, etc. Phoebe tells the joke and people laugh. Okay, so here's what happened. They had a defined process message that Phoebe was going to tell a joke and people were going to find it funny. That was the desired effect they wanted on the audience. So they went into production and they started producing that show where Phoebe tells that joke. Okay? So Phoebe tells the joke. The live studio audience is sitting there and nobody laughs at the joke. So the actual process message was the actual effect on the audience. Nobody laughed. So the writers, the director, the producers, they're all sitting there and like nobody laughed. They just got what's called their feedback. So they received that feedback and went, that joke didn't work. It didn't work. So what are they going to do? They're going to go all the way back to the idea phase. They're going to write a new joke. Okay, and you're all sitting there waiting while they're doing this. You know, a 22 episode of Friends, it took us 8 to 9 hours to tape that episode. So they come back up with another idea. They say, this is going to be a great joke. We want people to laugh. That's their defined process message. They put it into production. The actors do it. They record it. And guess what? The audience doesn't laugh again. So the actual process message, actual effect on the audience, it wasn't funny. That feedback, since nobody clapped, nobody laughed, that feedback went back to them, and then they start the process over and over again. This is why an episode of Friends that I went to took over 9 hours to record, because the defined process message wasn't actually becoming the actual process message. So they do this a third time. They write a joke for Phoebe. She tells the joke. That's in production. And guess what? The audience just busts out loud laughing. It's the funniest thing they've ever heard. So guess what? They've now done the effect to cause model. They got the process message, the actual one that they wanted. They got, people laughed, and they'll move on. So it all just works through just like that. An idea comes up. They pretty much decide how they're going to manipulate you. You know, if you watch, chick flicks, I call them, I live with all women in my home. I've got my wife and my daughters, and we watch a lot of chick flicks in our house. You know, they want you sometimes to laugh. They want you sometimes to cry. And so they're going to put that together. They're really manipulating you. They want you to feel a certain way. And it's all about the process message. They're going to define it. They're going to produce it. What does the audience actually get out of it? They're going to get that feedback, and then they're going to move forward. In the movie world, a lot of times they will put a movie together. They don't have an audience sitting there. They're assuming that it's going to be funny. So in the movie world, what will happen is a lot of times they will do screenings after they're completed the film. And the film might not fully be edited, might not have all the effects in the film, but they're going to do that, and then they're going to screen it, and then they're going to interview people. Well, they're going to listen. They're going to sit in the back and listen. Did they laugh? Did they hear anything sniffling when they cried? Did anybody, go, oh, that was gross? Or did they get scared? Did they get the effect of cause they were looking for? And then sometimes after, they'll even sit down and they'll ask questions. What'd you think of this? What'd you think of that? What'd you think of this? And that's why you have movies sometimes that you've heard about that were in production that actually take years before they come out, because they will literally go back and they will redo that again. The most important thing, why are we talking about this? Because we want people to watch the audio-video productions that we create, no matter what it happens to be. We just have to understand what a defined process message is and an actual process message. I want to actually show you a news story. I want you, now that you've kind of thought about how we've put things together here as far as process message, the defined, the actual, what we're going to do is we're going to watch a 3-minute news story. This was done by one of my favorite news people. It does a lot of really cool and interesting stories. His name is Steve Hartman. In the course, you'll actually watch a lot of Steve Hartman videos because Steve Hartman is cool. What Steve Hartman did, and you're going to notice this is a little bit old, this is about 10 years ago, but what Steve Hartman used to do is they would have whoever they did their story on would then take a dart and they would throw it at a map of the United States. You'll actually see that at the beginning of this video. They'll throw that dart, and whatever it lands, whatever state and city it lands on, him and his camera person, his photographer, they will travel to that city. Back in the old days, they'd go to what was called a phone booth. You've probably seen those in movies before. They would go to the phone booth and they'd find the phone book. They'd open the phone book, just randomly point at a name. They would call that person, and then they would, arrange to go to their house, and they would do a news story on whoever answered the phone. It was actually called Everybody Has a Story. They were proving that every single person is interesting. Everybody has some story to tell. So let's kick back and relax and watch this. I want you to pay attention about how this makes you feel. And I want you to, that's going to be the process message, the actual, what you got out of it, how you felt. And then we'll look at, what was Steve Hartman maybe trying to get you to feel. So here's Everybody Have a Story. It's called Balloon.
Here you go.
You will be going to Fentress County, Tennessee.
Here in the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains, I met my match.
Okay.
I always thought I could find a story in anyone, at least anyone old enough to answer a phone.
Piles.
But I didn't plan on this.
Hello?
Trey Piles answered, which meant I had to try and learn something about life from a 5-year-old.
Is it hard?
What's this?
That's quite a talent.
This obviously wasn't going to be easy. Trey is just at that age where he can't sit still no matter where he is.
Mama, it's almost over.
He has a like-minded brother, appropriately named Chase, and a mom and dad who try and keep up. After church and a quick drink, Trey likes to eat muffins the size of Montana. He's still working on the finer points of soccer and t-ball, but already excels at Nintendo and English as a second language.
I'm the bestest.
But what he's really bestest at is kindness. Every few weeks, Trey likes to give balloons to his grandma.
Thank you.
Of course, a lot of kids like to give their grandma presents. But what's special about Trey is that he still does.
After the funeral, he walked in a room and just started crying. And that was really hard for me, because they were really close.
Trey used to see his grandma almost every day. He was 2 when she died, and yet he clearly still remembers.
I never say, let's do this. It's always him saying, I want to give my mammy a balloon.
I asked Trey if he would show me how you give a balloon to someone who's not here anymore, and he obliged, but didn't take me to the cemetery.
Isn't that pretty?
Yeah.
Because his way of thinking is, why tie it to a tombstone when she's not even there? Why not bring it up here and let her catch it? As Trey watched that balloon disappear into his grandma's arms, I realized that he did have something to say after all. That faith is where you find it. And there's a lot more to religion than just sitting up straight on Sundays.
Woo! Louisiana.
Until then, I'm Steve Hartman, CBS News in Fentress County, Tennessee.
All right, so how did you feel? What did you, it was a very interesting story, had an interesting turn about his young man and his grandmother, and then how the balloons played into it. I have a feeling that Steve's process message, his desired process message for you, is that he wanted you to feel a little bit sad, but he also wanted you to feel a little bit happy, have some hope, and maybe even some love for this young man and what he was going through. How did you actually feel? How you felt watching that is the actual process message. And see, Steve's not getting that feedback from you, so he doesn't know what the actual process message was. We just know what the desired one was. All right, now that we've got that down, you already heard me talk a little bit about production. Well, there are 3 phases of production that you need to be familiar with. You've probably heard these before, but they are pre-production, production, and post-production. Pre-production is basically everything that happens before you get those cameras out and start actually filming or taping whatever your production happens to be. It's the planning and preparation stage. Now, I will say this. A lot of you I know watch a lot of YouTubers out there. And I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of these YouTubers, they don't plan at all. They turn the camera on and they start going. Most YouTubers, when they start out, will never make it. Why? Because they have not planned. It is so important. You just don't grab a camera and start filming anything. We don't do NHS TV or Bobcat TV or Eagle TV. Just, hey, everybody show up and we'll just roll the cameras and start doing something. There's a lot of preparation that has to come into play there. For a commercial, for a short film, for a TV show, for a full-length motion picture, a ton of pre-production is going to go into that. So planning and preparation happens there. Here are just some examples. Actors are cast, crew is hired, scripts are written, storyboards are done in film. They put together schedules, shooting schedules. They will send people, if it's a major motion picture like a new Jurassic World that's coming out, they will literally send scouts out to look at different, they'll travel the world and find good locations to film in. All of that stuff is happening before we set up the cameras and before we start rolling. When do we start rolling? When we have done our pre-production, we got it exactly the way we want, we roll into production. These are the actual activities when the event is recorded. A lot of times we will say taped, even though nobody uses tape anymore. In film, it's called principal photography for the movie or TV show. It's, when they're actually filming the show. But a lot of other things happen here. It looks like I got a spelling error here, but the crew and talent are often fed by craft services. That should say craft services on production day. So they're being fed as they're working and living on these movie sets to do that kind of stuff. Anything that happens while they are filming happens during production. Our final phase is post-production, and that's pretty easy. It's any event that takes place after production. So your editing, your sound mixing, your Foley, we'll talk about that later, special effects that need to be put in. A lot of these movies that you watch are filmed on blue and green screens. Some of them entirely are filmed on blue and green screens. So a lot of special effects work has to be done in post-production. Also, distribution to movie theaters, advertising of the film, watching those trailers, etc. All of that is post-production. So those are your three phases. Let's dig into what happens in these three phases a little bit more. All right, so let's break down our three levels of production. In pre-production, here are some things that take place. You're going to develop the idea. We've talked a lot about the idea. You're going to determine who your audience is. If we go back to the TV show Friends, the audience was basically, believe it or not, somewhere between the age of a teenager and about 32, 33, 34 years old. That's who they thought the audience would be for Friends. So then as they're writing the joke, they're thinking about that demographic of who that audience actually is. Another really important thing with that is, and I want you to pay attention, if you ever watch football games, what do you see when you watch an NFL game? What are the commercials? The commercials are usually products like beer, manly types of products. Just pay attention. A lot of trucks being sold, etc. They're determining who the audience is, and then advertisers are saying, yep, that's our demographic. We want to advertise there. If you ever stay home, we've all had a lot of time to stay home lately. If you ever stayed home and watched TV during the day, you're going to see advertising for a lot of cleaning products, for makeup, for things like that. Again, they're assuming that people that are running the home, the people that are buying those types of products, maybe don't work, or they're working from home, but they're actually at home quite a bit. So in pre-production, they're going to determine who their audience is. In pre-production, they're going to present their proposal. Nobody makes a movie, a TV show, a commercial without somebody signing off on it. And why does somebody have to sign off? Because things cost money. Costs an awful lot of money even to put together a 15-second public service announcement. So you're going to have to present that proposal, and it's going to have to be approved by the decision makers in your organization. You're going to have to write and develop the script and put that together. You're going to have to determine the look of your show. What do you want it to look like? What colors do you want to use? If we go back, maybe some of you have seen a movie called The Matrix. With Keanu Reeves. In The Matrix, when you watch those movies, you get a green tint to all of those movies. Why? Well, it's because the computer screen didn't used to be color. It used to be black, and the text used to be green. And so they got that color hue. And so most of The Matrix is done with that particular look. That's going to be determined in pre-production as well. They just don't show up on set and go, oh, I think we want our color scheme to be green. or we want it to be bright. You know, they're going to figure all of that out in pre-production. And then they're going to set their finances in order, and they're going to start hiring the crew. They're going to hire the actors. They're going to hire whoever's going to be in that particular production. And there's many other things that happen in pre-production, but this gives you a good example. All right, then we move into the actual production phase. In production, again, it's everything we do. We're going to assemble the set. Now, some of that might be done, you might think would be done in pre-production. Well, you're not rolling cameras yet. They're actually building the sets. Once you're building the sets, though, you're spending a ton of money. So that is actually putting the sets together on a movie production. That's actually considered during production, although some might argue that still falls in the pre-production phase. You're going to set up all of your equipment. That's going to be your lighting, which is super important. You're going to set up your environment. You're going to set up your cameras. You're going to bring your audio, microphones and things in to be able to do that. You're going to do your run-throughs and rehearsals. You might reset your period to adjust things. Hey, we did that. Oh, we need to move some lights. Hey, we need to set this over here. Hey, we need to put that here. That's going to happen in this time as well. You're going to do your actual recording and taping, and then when you're done, you're going to strike the set. Striking the set means taking the set down or moving those pieces. Then we finally move into the final phase of production, which is known as post-production. It's where all of the editing is going to happen and all the fixing. So you made some mistakes in production. Let me give you an example, and I'm going to tie it into number 3 there, the audio sweetening. Let's say that you're out on location and you were recording, but you didn't quite get good audio. Maybe a bird flew over and was chirping and you didn't want that in there. What the fixing is going to be is you're going to bring the actor back in. They're going to re-record their lines in a nice quiet sound stage or sound studio, and then they're going to put that into it and take the old audio out. They're going to make all the sounds sound good. They're going to put in sound effects, what we call Foley artist. All of that is going to be done in post-production. You're also going to take care of paperwork, invoices. You're going to be paying people out. That's also in post-production. You're going to do the audio evaluation that we talked about earlier, audience evaluation, where you're going to be getting feedback from audiences. Hey, did we like this? Because maybe if we didn't, we're going to go back into production and we're going to fix some things. Or we're going to go all the way back to pre-production and change some script items, whatever it happens to be. If you have paid attention to the Snyder cut of the Justice League, there is an example where audience evaluation was important, although very rare. The movie was actually released into theaters. A new director had taken over, changed a lot of things that the original director had done, and audiences overall didn't really like the Justice League. The original director said, hey, I've got a bunch of stuff. I'd really like to redo it with stuff that I already shot and put it together the way I envisioned it. Audiences loved that. Warner Brothers greenlighted it, and here pretty soon the Snyder cut of Justice League will be coming out, all due to audience evaluation. And then marketing, watching those trailers for the movie. If it's a TV show, they're going to have pictures of the anchors on buses and things like that, promoting that particular programming that they happen to be doing. So that concludes our lesson on the television production process. You should be familiar with process message. You should also understand the 3 phases of production, which are very important as well, because you guys will have an upcoming quiz on that. So make sure you also do the attendance check for today, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.